I want to talk about the confession scene in Wake Up Dead Man. A few minutes into the film, after we've watched the ex-boxer Reverend Judd Duplessis get reassigned to a new church, our main setting, Our Lady of Perpetual Fortitude in Chimney Rock, New York, and after he's met that church's head, the dark, fiery, resentful Monsignor Wicks, we see the former churchman take the latter's confession. And Wicks confesses 3 sins. First, that he had envied the material wealth of others, specifically he says hankering after a certain model of Lexus. Second, that in remembering the hold his grandfather Prentice had held over the church's congregation, Wicks had envied the power of great men. And third, that he'd been joking it silly style.
This week in my bed, in the morning once in the shower.
That's a lot. It's also, as Judd realizes, a test.
Looking back now, I know. This was Wicks's first punch.
Wicks is resentful of Judd's presence and the perceived overreach it represents. Bishop Langstrom had hoped Judd might be able to exert a softening influence on the Monsignor's us versus them fear-mongering ministry, and this confession is Wicks's counterattack, or his first counterattack at least. It is a lot, and that's the point. It's a series of lies and exaggerations.
I learned you had a radical prostatectomy 5 years ago, making you physically incapable of an erection.
It's an attempt to overwhelm Judd. If you're here for an easy ride, Wicks is saying, or if you think there's any chance I'll get out of the driver's seat, you've come to the wrong church. The sins, the confession itself, these things don't actually matter. Or do they? Let's fast forward. The main murder at the heart of this murder mystery is, of course, the killing of Monsignor Wicks, done in a perfect locked room mystery on Easter Friday, before seeming to rise again and exit his own tomb on the Sunday. We go on to find out that this is a ruse perpetrated by Wicks' assistant, longtime churchwoman Martha, and her co-conspirators, the doctor Nat and her husband Samson, who stands in for the risen Wicks, getting himself killed in the process. Martha had been taken in by Wicks' fire and brimstone, had been a devotee, but when she discovers his plans to leave the church and to enter politics by digging up his newly rediscovered family fortune, the wealth Wicks' grandfather, Martha's idol Prentice, had denounced as Eve's apple, the hold is broken, and she does the only thing that she thinks will stop his rise, protect the church, and take Eve's apple out of play. She kills him. Semi-understandable, really. That much money will straight up melt your brain. But hey, hot take maybe? There's nothing wrong with having a little bit of walking around money, especially in this part of the year. But with this video's sponsor, Rocket Money, the holiday season doesn't have to feel like murder. You know, like the movie. With Rocket Money, checking accounts, savings, loans, even investments if you fancy, all get pulled into a single place to give you an instant bird's-eye picture of your finances. And it's the same with subscriptions, all consolidated into a single list, and with a couple of clicks you can cancel them within the app. I think the best way Rocket Money saves you money though is the spend tracking feature. The app automatically categorizes transactions across all your accounts so you can see just how expensive that new hobby is, or so you can keep a super granular eye on how much that one holiday or wedding or party is setting you back. And there are a ton more features too, so if you want to take back control of your finances, why not head over to rocketmoney.com/pillarofgarbage. The app is free, but by hitting up that link, which you can find down below, or scanning my QR code, you can start a free premium trial too. Check it out, very handy app, and big thanks to them for sponsoring the video. Anyway, all that fast forwarding to say, the things that bring an end to Wicks' ministry, and therefore to his life, are, first, his desire for material wealth, for Eve's apple.
His grandfather's family fortune lost all these years. He told me he found it just this week.
Next, his fixation on seeking a bigger platform with local wannabe politicians' size help, that is his envy for the power of great men.
Your cult of personality? Are you kidding me? Give me 4 years. You could be president.
And lastly, his bond with Sai, who is, of course, revealed to be his child, the accidental result of a one-night stand the Monsignor previously had not claimed or looked after. A mess he created from lust and didn't clean up himself.
And I hadn't prepared, So I had to finish into a copy of Catholic Chronicle magazine.
On some level then, that confession scene wasn't merely a test, wasn't a pack of empty lies. Even the parts of this tale we know in retrospect to be untrue expressed a reality, even if Wicks wasn't consciously intending them to, or at least they resonated with some deeper, hidden truth. So really, the confession scene is surreptitiously setting up three key parts of this film. The parts that set the plot in motion, the sins that will eventually see Wicks sacrificed. Because Wicks' killing, all dressed up as it is in pageantry and pentobarbital, its motivation being in part protecting the spirit of the church, is a sacrifice. The penance is paid, the ledger washed white as snow. Indeed, there's a certain elegance to the murder plot, the way it's planned like a stage play, performed for a camera, for a town, complete with special effects and costumes, the way it kills so many birds with one knife. It doesn't work though, does it? I'm not talking about the fact that foul play is suspected, that Martha gets caught, or at least I'm not just talking about that. Even before this point, Wicks' death doesn't cleanse Our Lady of Perpetual Fortitude, doesn't heal the congregation. This resurrection story, in contrast to the one it emulates, doesn't manage to heal the world, doesn't manage to heal anything. Why not? That failure is interesting to me, and it was in watching that failure play out, seeing this resurrection held up against its prototype, asking that question, that I started wondering about another one. Because let's say Jesus lived, let's say he was crucified, and let's even say that on the third day he rose from the dead. Do you think he'd started to rot? The internal organs begin to liquefy approximately 24 hours post-mortem, as cell membranes rupture and digesting enzymes are released, and that's just the start. Was the son's body still stiff with rigor mortis, or was it starting to bloat, foam leaking from his nose and mouth? Standard Christian doctrine holds that God stopped Jesus' body from even beginning to decay, but the text of the Bible is a little unclear on this point. Take Acts 13:34, in which Paul preaches the resurrection story to a congregation in Antioch. More modern translations tend to render his Greek in doctrinally convenient ways. God raised him from the dead so that he will never be subject to decay, not leaving him to rot in the grave, and so on. But look at a King James version, for instance, and it seems a little different. He raised him out from the dead, now no more to return to corruption. No more is simply a more literal translation of the Greek word here, meketi, than never. The text is suggestive of some active process being halted. So before Jesus left the tomb, before he stood up, life where before there was death, did his muscles unstiffen? Did his organs re-solidify within the body broken? Did membranes stitch themselves back together one by one? Had he started to rot, or hadn't he? It's a trick question, sort of. Existing as it did before modern medical knowledge, ancient Jewish tradition saw the 3-day period immediately following death, that is, roughly the window of time before decomposition was clear to the naked eye and nose, as a kind of in-between. To quote the Leviticus rabbah, for the first 3 days, the soul hovers over the body, thinking that it will return to it. When it sees that the aura of the countenance has changed, it goes on its way. After this, the soul leaves and decay appears. In light of this, the biblical account makes perfect sense. God reactivated Jesus' body within the soul's period of hovering, and it stood up like any other would, free from decay, no more to return to a state of imminent rot. But also, it's not a trick question, right? Because we don't live in a world where decomposition waits 3 days to begin and is then immediately apparent. We live in a world of enzymes and membranes and liquefying organs. So for a believer today, there are 3 ways to deal with Acts 13:34. One is to reject biblical inerrancy, to accept that as a book penned and compiled by flawed, fallible humans, it might contain mistakes, basically to believe Paul was narrating Jesus' resurrection as he understood it, not as God did. The second is a kind of middle ground, going with the doctrine, following St. Augustine in looking to other parts of the Bible, other parts in Acts which state in less ambiguous terms that Jesus' body did not see decay, and interpret 1334, interpret that inconvenient maketi as figurative language on Paul's part. The third option would be an inverse of the first, embracing biblical inerrancy, taking the truth of Paul's speech as a first principle, above evidence, above rationality, and if that means believing modern science is wrong, or that the laws of medicine somehow fundamentally changed between then and now, then so be it. Or no. Maybe there are 4 options. Maybe you deal with Acts 1334 by not dealing with it. Maybe you don't care. You're a Christian, and maybe to you that's about going to church and knowing the right feelings to feel, and the right people to talk to, and the right people not to. Maybe you hadn't ever thought about the cells in Jesus' body before, or whose words are recorded in Acts, or what language they're recorded in. Maybe thinking of these things in any material context seems profane. Maybe it even makes you feel a little uncomfortable. Because maybe if you looked upon your familiar, idealized objects of belief with different eyes, if you viewed them as demythologized people and actions and processes, maybe you wouldn't recognize them at all.
Blindfolded men and women took on durational crucifixion postures as rivers of blood streamed down their mouths. Cannibal-like groups frantically scooped up entrails inside disemboweled carcasses of pigs to the deafening roar of a noisy orchestra.
This is the work of Hermann Nitsch, or rather these are photographs of his work, the few photographs I'm able to show you relatively intact without incurring the biggest community strike ever. The works were the performances of his so-called theatre of orgies and mysteries, hundreds over the course of his life, which saw scores of performers enact elaborate, visceral ceremonies, acting out human sacrifices, crucifixions, feasts, and the like, often for days at a time. Unsimulated animal butchery is often a central component. As Nitsch himself put it in 2018,
"The involvement of color, blood, meat, intestines, carcasses of slaughtered animals, and naked human performers happens ritualistically. The piece, of course, is a work in progress. It is never finished."
Nitsch painted too, but these pieces were hardly softer. Blood, sometimes real, sometimes simulated, stains walls, clots on canvas. And here too, Christian symbolism is often central.
"I am engaged with finding being. When you find being, there is first death, then resurrection."
This is not accidental. For many Nitsch aficionados, like museum curator Simon Zalkind, the Austrian's visceral contention with Christian imagery is an intentional juxtaposition, an effort to push past the starch vestments and nativity scenes, and, I quote,
"Restore us to this sort of bloody truth rather than the accretion of sentiment and piety that's accrued over the centuries."
Because, I mean, have you read the Bible? There is a lot of blood. There is a lot of sacrifice. Mostly of animals, but not entirely. The main guy sacrifices his son, right? And the main rite is the collective eating of that sacrificed, maybe rotted son's flesh and blood. It would be crude and it would be misleading to say this is the thing Nitsch's paintings and mystery plays are about. What Nitsch looked to accomplish, what his surprisingly numerous fans claim to derive from his work, all this goes far beyond the Bible. It's about agency and catharsis and life. But in large part, all that is accomplished through a literal revitalizing of Europe's most central and least considered myth. And either way, the result is an ugly, alluring body of work that harmonizes with the seldom recognized blood coating modern Christianity's bones, that throws into focus all those times a fearsome Yahweh called for invasion and extermination, and the fact that Catholicism's holiest relics are bones and death-marked shrouds. Wake Up Dead Man's Christianity, at least for the majority of its characters, remains out of that focus. The ephemera of religion and the people and groups they experience religion via have come to outweigh the thing itself.
So, Monsignor Wicks isn't coming?
He knows that we're doing these, right?
We're with you, Monsignor Wicks, and literally nothing that you say or do is going to change that.
But this is especially true of the plot's prime mover, Martha. Her clean, tidy idea of Christian life, the sentiment, the piety, obscures its reality. Martha sees the harlot whore, where Benoit, Judd, even Vera eventually come to see a desperate and desperately unhappy woman. Martha doesn't see hate overpowering, calcifying her church gradually, predictably. She sees nothing wrong until Wicks decides to leave, decides to shatter the illusion, and then, all at once, his church is fallen. Everything is smoothed out and scaled up to mythic proportions. And even then, Martha doesn't see in Wicks a spiteful, insecure, impotent man using his position to put others down, to make himself feel less small. She sees a sickened fisher king who must be sacrificed to renew the land, a lamb to die for the church's sins. And this makes sense, because if she couldn't see his real life, how could she give him a real death? So Martha doesn't plan a murder, Martha plans a ritual. Or, as Judd might put it, Martha plans a story. I lied at the start of this video, or at least I stopped short, because that confession scene doesn't set up 3 key parts of this film. There is a 4th. Don't get me wrong, I didn't omit a clip of Wicks disclosing another phony sin that doubles as foreshadowing. No, it's just that. The way Wicks tests Judd, the way Wake Up Dead Man signals the Monsignor's weaknesses, is through lying, is through storytelling.
To understand this case, I had to look at the myth that was being constructed.
Storytelling more than anything, and the way it intersects with truth, these are the keys to Wake Up Dead Man. And as I alluded to a moment ago, there's a scene that comes about halfway through the movie which fleshes the theme out more explicitly.
You're right. It's storytelling. And this church, it's not medieval. We're in New York. And the rites and rituals and costumes, all of it. It's storytelling. Guess the question is, do these stories convince us of a lie? Or do they resonate with something deep inside us that's profoundly true, that we can't express any other way?
A lie that contains a truth and a lie that contains nothing, these are profoundly different things. So which stories disguise reality, and which simply disguise other stories? The question echoes throughout the film. The Monsignor's tirades about Christianity's endangered existence, his spiels about Marxist, feminist whores, and so on, are obviously fictions, stories that reject reality, lies containing no truths. The things those tirades have given rise to, that out-of-focus Christianity we noted above, the thing that drives the congregation to stay in their pews, to choose Wicks above the values they'd purport to hold, the myopia behind Martha's doomed plan, all this too corresponds to the empty storytelling Judd critiques. Martha didn't save the flock by sacrificing Wicks because there never was a flock to save. There was only ever a handful of marks, getting conned, getting radicalized, and therefore her whole production was simply one story disguising another, all trappings, no truth. This is even why it falls apart in the first place. Nat betrays the conspiracy, makes off with Eve's apple because he's fooling himself about the chances of attracting his wife back, telling himself an empty lie. It's stories disguising stories all the way down. But not every instance of storytelling functions in this way. Think back to the confession scene. Yes, Wicks was telling tales, but again, in retrospect, every one of those stories tells us something real about Wicks. His avarice, his hungriness for power, and his messy lust.
But the cats were girls, and, you know.
Or perhaps more significantly, there's the matter of Samson's murder.
I did it. I killed Samson. I'm guilty. I have to confess.
It does turn out that this narrative of Judd's culpability is a fiction, but it's clear from the way Judd leaps forward to claim this epiphany of blame that the story he's telling of guilt of an unsettled debt is a true one, resonates with something at the core of his being. At its heart, of course, this resonance is the same thing sought by an artist like Herman Nitsch. As Fad magazine writes,
"He doesn't want to cancel the mass. He wants to goose it back to life, to unlock the primal energies he believes are bubbling just beneath its polished surface."
Or in the words of a piece in Il Sole 24 Ore,
"An art that coincides with life is celebrated. Nothing more, nothing less."
all this, distasteful as it may seem, is storytelling that aims to bring out a truth. A bloody truth, perhaps, but a truth all the same. There is a power in doing this, in coming in from an oblique angle and casting unexpected, unforeseen light on reality. The truth shines all the brighter for its disguising, and Rian Johnson knows this better than anybody. This is kind of what he does. I mean, to quote myself from a video I made a few months back, Johnson's work asks us, sometimes challenges us to reconsider things we've become accustomed to, whether these be genres, franchises, sometimes wider cultural narratives, and to reflect on our affinities. Do we love these things? Can we believe in them, through them? Or do we just love the way they're packaged? It's never quite that simple, of course. Truth can be a moving target. A story that was true once can become empty. And maybe you don't always know if your story is a true lie or a false one, whether the dead man will wake up or simply decay, until you've told it and you feel that resonance or its lack. And again, perhaps storytelling can be a vehicle for truth, but it can far more easily be its enemy too. It's almost a wonder that resonance is ever achieved then. It's almost a wonder that truth can persevere, as it does here, in the chapel between Martha and Judd. What is the missing ingredient? What is it that gets us here?
A priest is a shepherd. The world is a wolf.
Fight back, take back the ground we've lost. And we've lost so much ground.
No, I don't believe that, Father, respectfully. Christ came to heal the world, not fight it. This, not this, you know? I think that's what the church should be.
Faith and truth are always linked in Wake Up Dead Man, but not always in the same configuration. In Wake's, in his sermons, in that confession scene, we see truth serving faith. It's alternately told in part, massaged, or buried altogether in order to preserve belief in the story he's telling, in his rightful place as that story's teller. But we also see faith in service of truth.
He didn't transform me, he sustains me every day. That's daily bread, right?
It's faith that keeps Judd in Chimney Rock, even as Wicks tests him for 9 months, that motivates him to save that church from the Monsignor. And just as important, just as consequential, it's faith that keeps Benoit Blanc on the case, and that sees the case cracked and brings Martha to her confession. It's a different kind of faith, sure, but its configuration is the same. Where its inverse is passive, requires nothing of you beyond inertia, staying put in your pew, faith in service of truth is an active thing, the film suggests. It's the thing that sustains you, but you still have to strain. This at least is the film's answer, as we end with an affirmation, not simply of faith, but of this faith, open in this configuration, moving forward. Because as Judd observes near the film's beginning, to stop, to assume the search is over, that it can end, that the truth is inherent to your position, your church, your nation, your race, is to raise a wall, raise a fist. There is a truth you can swallow without choking, but you have to find it, and you have to keep finding it. And maybe it's hidden in a story, in a ritual, in a performance, in a prayer for a stranger, in grace for the guilty, but it is there. Hey, I hope you liked this video, and thank you for sticking around until the end. It'll probably be the last new one I make this year. I don't know, maybe Ben Shapiro will publicly try to understand this film too, and I'll pull him up on it again. That could be fun. Otherwise, I'll just take this opportunity to again raise that I'm asking any of you guys who are financially comfortable and want me to be able to continue making videos like these to think about joining up on Patreon or YouTube. This has never been a stable gig, but views have been all over the place this year, and the amount YouTube's paid me per view has actually gone down too. The stretch goals I've cooked up to gamify that request a little are gonna expire in a couple of weeks, so if you'd be interested in any of these here rewards, please do think about it. Patreon.com/pillarofgarbage. It's like you're giving me a little Christmas present. And a big festive thank you to everyone supporting me already, especially Hanan, Daniel Goldhorn, Deathstroke HQ, Harry Price, Kwangyu Liu, Nothings, Snow Era, Something Something Capitalism Bad, Stephen Van Doren, Thomas R, and Weirdy Beardy. Merry Happy.